The first time I realized my aunt had stolen my future, she was smiling into a camera. Not at me, at thousands of strangers, while I sat in a bank office staring at an account balance that no longer existed. $60,000. Gone. The wedding fund my fiancé and I had spent 4 years building. The money we skipped vacations for. The money we saved instead of upgrading our apartment. The money that represented every delayed dream. And somehow, the woman live-streaming luxury handbags from a beachfront villa was the same woman who had spent months telling me she was barely getting by. That was the day I stopped calling her Aunt Sarah and started studying her.
The bank smelled like printer toner and burnt coffee. I remember that detail because everything else felt unreal. The young manager across from me kept speaking softly, carefully, like someone delivering bad news to a hospital patient. There were authorized transfers. Authorized. I hated that word. Because it suggested permission. Choice. Participation. As if I had willingly handed over $60,000. I stared at the paperwork spread across his desk. My signature appeared on every authorization. Except it wasn't my signature. Not really. It looked like mine. Close enough to fool a system. Close enough to empty an account. Not close enough to fool me. My hands were trembling beneath the table. I folded them together so nobody would notice. Who received the funds? I asked. The manager hesitated. I'm not permitted to disclose certain details until the investigation begins. Investigations. Another word that sounded comforting until it belonged to you. Outside, rain tapped against the bank windows. People walked past carrying umbrellas. Normal lives. Normal problems. Meanwhile, my wedding was scheduled in 4 months. Venues had deposits. Vendors had deadlines. Invitations had already been mailed. And my savings account had become a crime scene. I called my fiancé, Daniel. The second he answered, I couldn't speak. Not immediately. The silence told him everything. I'm coming, he said. Then he hung up. No questions. No panic. Just movement. That was Daniel. When life caught fire, he looked for water. 2 hours later, we sat in our apartment kitchen. The overhead light buzzed faintly. Neither of us had touched dinner. My phone lay between us. Dozens of missed calls. Messages from relatives. Wedding questions. Guest confirmations. A future that suddenly felt expensive. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. There has to be someone. I nodded. There was. I just didn't want to say her name. Because once I said it aloud, it became real. My aunt had access. The words felt ugly. Daniel looked up. Not surprised. Concerned. Just concerned. Sarah? I nodded again. She helped me organize financial records last year. Remember when Mom was in the hospital? He remembered. Of course he remembered, and Sarah had volunteered to help. She'd shown up with folders. Spreadsheets. Sympathy. Homemade casseroles. The perfect aunt. The dependable one. The family fixer. Looking back, it almost felt rehearsed. 3 days later, suspicion became something heavier. Evidence. Not enough for police. Not enough for court. But enough for me. Sarah's social media exploded overnight. Literally overnight. One week she was posting discount shopping tips and family recipes. The next week, designer clothes, luxury hotels, private events, champagne brunches. The transformation was almost aggressive. As if she wanted everyone to notice. As if she couldn't help herself. I watched one of her live streams late at night. The room around me was dark. Only the glow of my laptop illuminated the kitchen. Sarah sat in front of a wall of expensive artwork. Perfect makeup. Perfect lighting. Perfect confidence. I've worked incredibly hard for this life, she told her audience. Thousands of comments poured down the screen. People adored her, admired her, wanted to become her. I felt physically sick, because I knew how many years Daniel and I had sacrificed for $60,000. And I knew exactly when her luxury life had started. The same month our money disappeared. The police investigation moved slowly. Painfully slowly. Every update sounded identical. We're reviewing records. We're gathering information. We'll contact you soon. Soon became weeks. Weeks became frustration. Frustration became obsession. I stopped scrolling through Sarah's content for emotional reasons. I started studying it. Like evidence. Patterns emerged. She mentioned exclusive memberships, private networking circles, invitation-only communities, a hidden ecosystem surrounding her public persona. Most viewers ignored those comments. I didn't. Because people who steal money rarely steal once. They build systems, and systems leave trails. One Thursday evening I found something. It happened by accident. A viewer asked Sarah about a luxury retreat she attended. Sarah smiled, then immediately corrected herself. A tiny mistake. Barely noticeable. The details are inside the circle. The circle. A strange name. She quickly moved on. Most people missed it. I didn't. Because her eyes changed when she said it. Just for a second. The way people look when they've revealed something they weren't supposed to reveal. I replayed the clip 6 times. Then 12. Then 20. The circle. Whatever it was. It mattered. The next 2 weeks became an education. I learned more about Sarah than I had in 30 years of family gatherings. The woman I thought I knew barely existed. Behind the influencer brand was a carefully managed machine. Private chats. Exclusive subscriptions. Inner circle memberships. Paid access communities. And buried deep beneath all of it, something called the circle. No public links. No public invitations. No public information. Only references. Fragments. Whispers. The digital equivalent of a locked door. And for the first time since losing the wedding fund, I felt something besides grief. Curiosity. Because every path seemed to lead back there. Every clue. Every unexplained purchase. Every sudden luxury upgrade. Every mysterious new friendship. The circle sat in the center of it all. Waiting. One night Daniel walked into the living room carrying 2 mugs of tea. I hadn't noticed it was nearly midnight. My laptop screen was covered in notes, usernames, screenshots, timelines, connections. He set the mug beside me, then looked at the wall where I'd pinned printed screenshots. The expression on his face made me laugh. "You've built an investigation board." "I know." "It looks slightly terrifying." "I know." He smiled despite himself. Then his smile faded. "Are you sure about this?" I looked at the photographs, the live stream clips, the dates, the patterns, the questions nobody else seemed willing to ask. "No," I said honestly. Then I took a slow breath. "But I'm sure about one thing." Daniel waited. I looked at Sarah's smiling face frozen on the screen. The same smile she'd worn at birthdays, at holidays, at family dinners. The same smile she'd worn while my future disappeared. "Whatever happened to our money?" I said quietly. "The answer is inside that group." Outside, thunder rolled across the city. The room darkened as clouds swallowed the last traces of evening. And somewhere beyond a locked membership system, my aunt was preparing for the biggest live stream of her career. She had no idea I was already looking for a way in. If you're enjoying this story, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe for more psychological drama stories every week. Because what I discovered inside Sarah's private circle wasn't just about stolen money. It revealed a secret she never expected anyone in the family to uncover. The invitation arrived at 2:17 in the morning. Not in my inbox. Not through a public sign-up page. Not through any official channel. It appeared in a private message from an account that had never posted publicly. No profile picture. No biography. No followers. Just a single sentence. "Circle applications reopen Friday." And beneath it, a link. I stared at the screen while the glow from my laptop reflected against the apartment window. My own reflection looked exhausted. Weeks of frustration had aged me. But for the first time since the wedding fund vanished, I felt movement. A door had finally cracked open. Getting inside wasn't as simple as paying a fee. That would have been easy. The circle wasn't selling access. It was selling exclusivity. Applicants submitted personal profiles, income brackets, business interests, social media statistics, and references, even photographs. The entire thing felt less like a membership program and more like a private country club trying to disguise itself as an online community. And somehow, Sarah sat near the center of it. Every major member seemed connected to her. Featured by her. Promoted by her. Protected by her. The deeper I dug, the stranger it became. I couldn't apply as myself. That much was obvious. Sarah would recognize my name instantly. So would anyone close to her. Which meant we needed another way. A believable way. Something real enough to survive scrutiny. Not a fake identity. A new version of me. One they had never seen. 3 evenings later, Daniel and I sat across from his cousin Rachel. Rain tapped softly against the cafe windows. The place smelled like espresso and cinnamon. Rachel listened quietly while I explained everything. The missing money. Sarah's sudden wealth. The circle. The application process. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she laughed. Not because it was funny. Because she was impressed. "Your aunt built herself a cult." I almost smiled. That's exactly what it feels like. Rachel stirred her coffee. What do you need? Access. That's dangerous. I know. She studied me carefully. You've already decided. I nodded. Yeah. Another pause. Then Rachel sighed. Okay. That single word changed everything. Rachel worked in luxury event management. Over the years, she'd accumulated thousands of professional contacts. Influencers, brand consultants, lifestyle creators, marketing executives, people who lived online, people who understood how exclusive communities worked, and more importantly, people who could open doors. Within days, she introduced me to a woman named Lauren. Lauren wasn't part of the circle, but she knew members. Several of them. Enough to explain how the system functioned. We met at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the river. The city lights reflected across the water like scattered glass. Lauren arrived 20 minutes late. Designer coat. Perfect posture. Phone permanently attached to her hand. She listened while I carefully described what I was trying to understand. Not who. Just what a. When I finished, she set down her wine glass. The circle isn't really about content. What is it about? She looked out across the river. Access. One word. Heavy with meaning. Access to what? She laughed softly. People. That answer bothered me for days. Because it was vague. And vague answers usually hide uncomfortable truths. The more Lauren explained, the more unsettling everything became. Members weren't paying for live streams, or courses, or networking events. They were paying for proximity to successful people, popular people, influential people, or at least people who appeared successful. The entire system ran on perception. Status became currency. Visibility became power. And Sarah had become one of its biggest stars. Which raised a question I couldn't stop asking myself. How does a woman go from financial struggles to luxury influence almost overnight? The answer arrived unexpectedly. Late one Saturday, I was reviewing old livestream recordings when I noticed something unusual. Sarah kept mentioning the same names, the same businesses, the same sponsors. Again, and again, and again. Like a script. Not obvious enough for casual viewers. Obvious enough if you watched hundreds of hours. Which I had. The sponsors weren't random. The partnerships weren't organic. The friendships weren't natural. Everything fed into everything else. A closed ecosystem. Members promoting members. Businesses funding creators. Creators attracting subscribers. Subscribers funding businesses. Round and round. An endless loop. And somehow, money moved through all of it. Large amounts of money. A week later, my application interview arrived. I nearly canceled. Not because I was scared. Because I was angry. Every step toward the circle felt like stepping deeper into Sarah's world. A world built on appearances. A world that had already cost me $60,000. But anger wasn't useful. Answers were. So I logged in. Camera on. Microphone ready. Heart racing. The interviewer introduced himself as Marcus. Mid-40s. Polished. Friendly. The kind of person who made you comfortable while collecting information. The conversation felt casual. Almost too casual. Questions about business goals, community interests, professional ambitions, networking objectives. Nothing particularly suspicious. Yet somehow, by the end of the call, Marcus knew more about me than some relatives. That realization stayed with me. Because communities built around influence often collect something more valuable than money. Information? 3 days later, an email arrived. Simple, professional, brief. Welcome to the circle. I read it twice. Then 3 times. Daniel was standing beside me when it happened. Neither of us spoke immediately. Because after months of searching, months of dead ends, months of watching Sarah from a distance, I was finally inside. The circle wasn't what I expected. There were no dramatic secrets, no hidden criminal meetings, no cartoon villains, just people, hundreds of people, talking, posting, networking, sharing opportunities. At first glance, it looked harmless. Boring, even. But appearances had fooled me before. So I watched. Quietly. Patiently. The same way I had watched Sarah. And slowly, patterns began appearing. Private channels. Invitation-only discussions. Members with unusual privileges. Conversations that disappeared after a few hours. And one section nobody seemed allowed to discuss publicly. A locked group simply called Inner Circle. Not the circle. The inner circle. A group inside the group. A second door behind the first. And when I checked the member list, one name appeared near the very top. Sarah Bennett, administrator. That night sleep never came. I sat alone in the dark living room. The city outside reduced to distant lights and occasional traffic. My laptop screen illuminated the room. The inner circle page remained locked. Visible? Untouchable. Like a vault door. Yet something about it felt different. Closer but real. For months, Sarah had been untouchable. A smiling face behind live streams and luxury branding. Now there was a path. A narrow one. But a path nonetheless. And as I stared at that locked page, a notification suddenly appeared in the corner of my screen. A new announcement. Posted directly by Sarah. A live stream event. Scheduled 3 weeks away. Her largest broadcast ever. Major sponsors. Celebrity guests. Exclusive reveals. Thousands expected to watch. The event she had spent months promoting. The event her entire reputation seemed built around. Most members responded with excitement. Congratulations. Support. Admiration. I read the announcement twice. Then a third time. And one sentence made my stomach tighten. Inner Circle members will receive backstage access. Backstage access. Not virtual. Real. Restricted. Private. And for the first time, I realized the biggest secret wasn't hidden inside the live stream. It was hidden behind it. Inside the people running it. Inside the inner circle. Inside the room Sarah never expected me to enter. Next week, I would receive my first direct message from someone inside that private group. A message that would reveal Sarah wasn't the only person hiding something, and that my missing wedding fund might be connected to a much larger deception. The message arrived at 1:04 a.m. No greeting. No introduction. Just 6 words. You're asking the wrong questions. I stared at the screen. The sender's profile was hidden behind a username I didn't recognize. No photograph. No personal details. No public activity. Nothing. Exactly the kind of account that made people nervous. And exactly the kind of account that gets your attention. I should have ignored it. Any sensible person would have. Instead, I typed, "What questions should I be asking?" 3 dots appeared immediately. The person had been waiting. Watching. That realization sent a chill through me. Then the reply arrived. "Stop following the money." A pause. Another message. "Follow the audience." I frowned. The audience? That made no sense. The wedding fund was money. Sarah's luxury lifestyle was money. Everything pointed toward money. Didn't it? The next morning I reread the conversation at least 20 times. Every sentence felt deliberate. Carefully chosen up, like someone trying to communicate without saying too much. By lunchtime, another message appeared. Attend every live stream. That was it. Nothing else. No explanation. No context. Just an instruction. And against my better judgment, I followed it. For the next 2 weeks, I became one of Sarah's most loyal viewers. Not publicly. Quietly. Invisible. I watched every broadcast. Every sponsored event. Every interview. Every private circle session I could access. At first, nothing stood out. The same luxury recommendations. The same motivational speeches. The same promises about success and independence. But eventually, I noticed something strange. Sarah rarely talked about products. She talked about people. Constantly. Specific viewers. Specific members of specific success stories. She celebrated them. Promoted them. Highlighted them. Again and again. Almost like advertisements. Except the product wasn't a handbag. Or a vacation package. Or a coaching program. The product was belonging. One evening I watched a live stream from my apartment balcony. The summer air was warm. Traffic hummed below. Sarah sat in a luxury penthouse answering audience questions. Thousands of comments flooded the screen. Then something happened. A woman named Jessica posted a message. Sarah noticed immediately. "Jessica joined us 6 months ago," she said. "Now she's tripled her income." The audience exploded with excitement. Jessica became the center of attention. People asked questions. Wanted advice. Wanted details. But none were provided. Just enough information to create curiosity. Not enough to verify anything. The moment passed quickly. Most viewers forgot about it. I didn't. Because I'd heard similar stories dozens of times. Different names. Different outcomes. Same structure. The pattern repeated everywhere. And suddenly I understood what my anonymous contact meant. Follow the audience. The audience wasn't consuming the content. The audience was becoming the content. Their stories fueled engagement. Their testimonials attracted new members. Their excitement generated trust. And trust generated revenue. The entire machine depended on people believing extraordinary success was happening behind the scenes. Whether it was true or not, that realization led me somewhere unexpected. The member success stories, if they were real, they could confirm Sarah's credibility. If they weren't, everything started collapsing. So I began searching. Patiently. Methodically. The same way I'd investigated Sarah. One name at a time. One story at a time. One success claim at a time. The first 3 checked out. Real people. Real businesses. Real growth. I almost felt disappointed. Maybe I was chasing shadows. Maybe Sarah was dishonest about my wedding fund, but legitimate everywhere else. Then I reached the 4th story. A man named Eric. According to Sarah, he'd built a 6-figure consulting business after joining the circle. His success story appeared everywhere. Videos of promotions, testimonials, advertisements. The problem? The business barely existed. I spent 3 days digging. Public records and archived websites, business registrations, everything. The company was technically real, but the numbers didn't match the story. Not even close. And once I found one inconsistency, I started finding others. Small contradictions. Big gaps. Little details nobody else would notice. Until eventually, a disturbing picture emerged. Not every success story was fake. That would have been easy to expose. The reality was smarter. Much smarter. Some stories were completely genuine. Others were heavily exaggerated. And a few were almost entirely manufactured. That night, another message arrived. The anonymous account again. They're getting closer. I stared at the screen. A mix of curiosity and frustration twisted inside me. Who was this person? How did they know what I was investigating? Why were they helping me? Before I could ask, another message appeared. Sarah isn't the founder. I froze. Read it again. Then again. My pulse accelerated. Because every public document connected the circle to Sarah. Every interview positioned her as its face. Its leader. Its success story. Yet the message suggested something else. Something bigger. I typed back immediately. Who is? No response. 5 minutes. 10. An hour. Nothing. Then finally, wrong question. I nearly threw my phone across the room. The person was either helping me or enjoying themselves. Possibly both. Another message followed. Ask who benefits when she takes the blame. And just like that, everything changed. Until that moment, Sarah had been the center of every theory. Every suspicion, every plan, every ounce of my anger. But what if she wasn't the architect? What if she was simply the visible face? The person everyone looked at. The person everyone blamed. The person standing in front of something much larger. I hated the possibility. Because it complicated everything. And complicated truths are harder to defeat. 3 days later, I finally entered the inner circle. Not through invitation. Not through luck. Through patience. A senior member I had befriended vouched for me. Weeks of conversations. Weeks of trust building. Weeks of pretending I cared about networking opportunities. Now the final door opened. And what I found wasn't what I expected. The inner circle contained fewer than 50 members. Compared to the hundreds inside the circle, it felt tiny. Exclusive, powerful, dangerously connected. Business owners, influencers, investors, public figures, people whose names carried weight. And right near the top, Sarah. But she wasn't number one. Someone else was. A name I had never seen before. Nathan Cole. Founder. Executive administrator. I clicked his profile. No photos. No live streams. No interviews. No public visibility. Which immediately felt strange. Because the most powerful person inside the entire organization was practically invisible. Everyone knew Sarah. Nobody talked about Nathan. And people who stay hidden while everyone else takes the spotlight usually have a reason. The deeper I explored, the stranger it became. Nathan rarely posted. Yet every major decision traced back to him. Every partnership. Every event. Every policy. Every financial initiative. His fingerprints were everywhere. But his face was nowhere. A ghost running a kingdom. And suddenly I understood why my anonymous contact kept redirecting me. I had spent months staring at the spotlight, while the real story sat behind the stage. Then came the discovery that stopped me cold. A financial planning document uploaded accidentally into a member resource folder. It wasn't public. It wasn't meant for ordinary members. It appeared to have been shared by mistake. Most people would have ignored it. I opened it. And buried inside dozens of pages was a budget projection for Sarah's upcoming live stream event. The biggest event of her career. The event everyone was preparing for. The event that would be watched by thousands. As I scanned the figures, one number made my stomach drop. A special allocation fund. $60,000. Exactly $60,000. The same amount that vanished from my wedding account. Not 58. Not 62. 60,000. Exactly. Word for word. Digit for digit. The room suddenly felt smaller. The air heavier. Because coincidence had just stopped being a believable explanation. And for the first time, I had something connecting my missing money to Sarah's empire. Not proof. Not yet. But something far more dangerous. A trail. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat alone in the darkness, staring at the budget document glowing on my laptop screen. The city outside was silent. Daniel had already gone to bed. Yet one thought kept repeating in my head. If my wedding fund helped finance Sarah's biggest live stream, then somewhere inside that event, someone knew exactly what happened. And in 2 weeks, thousands of people would be watching it live, including me. Because by then I wasn't just trying to recover stolen money anymore. I was trying to uncover a secret powerful enough that someone inside the organization had risked everything to point me toward it. And whoever they were, they had just sent one final message. When the live stream starts, watch the backstage feed. The backstage feed wasn't supposed to exist. At least not for people like me. Public viewers saw polished camera angles, perfect lighting, luxury branding, carefully rehearsed conversations. But inner circle members received something different. A private production stream. Unedited. Behind a curtain. Exactly where secrets tend to hide. The live stream event began on a Friday evening. By 6 o'clock, Sarah's team had transformed an entire waterfront hotel into a content studio. Massive screens illuminated the ballroom. Crystal chandeliers reflected soft gold light across polished floors. Cameras moved on silent tracks. Sponsors filled every corner. Everything looked expensive. Intentionally expensive. The kind of event designed to convince people success was inevitable if they followed the right leader. And Sarah stood at the center of it all. Smiling. Confident. Untouchable. Or at least she thought she was. Daniel sat beside me on our couch. Neither of us spoke much. The living room was dark except for the glow of 2 monitors. One displayed the public livestream. The other displayed the restricted backstage feed. 2 versions of the same reality. One carefully edited. One dangerously honest. The contrast was fascinating. Public Sarah radiated confidence. Backstage Sarah radiated pressure. She checked her phone constantly. Asked the same questions repeatedly. Reviewed notes every few minutes. Something about her felt different. Tighter. Nervous. Like someone carrying a weight nobody else could see. Then I saw him. Nathan Cole. For the first time. Not in a profile. Not in a document. Not in a rumor. In person. Standing near the production control room. He looked ordinary. That was the surprising part. No flashy entrance. No celebrity presence. No influencer energy. Just a man in his 50s wearing a dark jacket and speaking quietly to staff members. Yet every conversation seemed to stop when he approached. Every decision appeared to involve him. People deferred to him automatically. The way employees respond to ownership. Not leadership. Ownership. As the event gained momentum, I watched Nathan more than Sarah. And eventually, I noticed something strange. He barely interacted with the audience. Barely acknowledged sponsors. Barely appeared on camera. Instead, he spent most of his time monitoring data screens, membership numbers, subscriptions, engagement statistics, donation totals, financial dashboards. His attention wasn't on people. It was on numbers. Always numbers. 3 hours into the event, my anonymous contact sent another message. No greeting. No explanation. Control room B. I frowned. Then looked back at the backstage feed. A camera operator briefly passed a hallway sign. Control room B. The room Nathan had entered twice already. My heart accelerated. Because suddenly I wasn't watching entertainment anymore. I was watching directions. Someone inside the event was actively guiding me. Step by step. Moment by moment. Risking exposure every time they contacted me. The question was why? Why help me? Why now? And what exactly did they want me to see? At 9:43 p.m. I got my answer. A production assistant accidentally left a microphone active. For most viewers, it would have been meaningless background noise. For me, it became the most important 30 seconds of the entire night. Nathan's voice. Clear. Unfiltered. Coming from control room B. Keep Sarah focused. Another voice replied. We're ahead of projections. Nathan answered immediately. Good. Then don't let distractions reach her. Distractions. The word caught my attention. Because he sounded irritated. Not worried. Not surprised. I leaned closer to the screen. Then came the sentence that changed everything. After tonight, she'll carry the responsibility anyway. The responsibility. Not ours. Not theirs. Hers. Sarah's. The room suddenly felt colder. Because I finally understood. Nathan wasn't protecting Sarah. He was using her. The same way a corporation uses a spokesperson. The same way a company uses a public face. If everything succeeded, he benefited. If everything collapsed, she absorbed the damage. Daniel looked at me. You heard that too? I nodded. Slowly, carefully. Because pieces were finally connecting. Not completely, but enough. Sarah wasn't innocent. Far from it. But she also wasn't alone. And that distinction mattered. Another message arrived. You're almost there. I typed immediately. Who are you? No response. Instead, check the archived production folder. My pulse jumped. Because only inner circle administrators had access to archived production materials. Or at least, they were supposed to. I followed the link attached to the message. A hidden storage directory opened. Hundreds of files. Old event recordings. Financial spreadsheets. Internal presentations. Production notes. Years of digital history. Most of it looked ordinary. Until one folder caught my attention. To special allocation. The same phrase I'd seen in the budget document. The same category linked to the mysterious $60,000. My hand tightened around the mouse. I opened it. The folder contained dozens of records. Funding transfers. Vendor payments. Marketing allocations. Nothing obvious. Nothing dramatic. Then I found a spreadsheet. And for a moment, I genuinely thought I was reading it wrong. Because listed among the internal funding sources was a reference number. A banking reference number. One I recognized instantly. My account reference. The room disappeared. The live stream disappeared. The noise disappeared. Everything narrowed into a single point. That number. That impossible number. The identifier connected to my wedding fund. Sitting inside an internal financial document. Inside Sarah's organization. Inside their records. Not speculation. Not theory. Not coincidence. Reality? Daniel read over my shoulder. His face drained of color. Neither of us spoke. Because there was nothing left to debate. Someone inside this operation had access to money that never belonged to them. And they had documented it. Confidently, as if nobody would ever look closely enough to notice. Then a final notification appeared. Not from my anonymous source. From the event itself. A schedule update. Sarah's closing segment had been moved forward by 20 minutes. A last-minute change approved by Nathan. At first it seemed insignificant. Then I noticed something else. The production notes attached to the update. A private video file scheduled for broadcast. One file. One segment. One pre-recorded presentation. And attached to it, the exact funding records I'd just discovered. My stomach dropped. Because suddenly the truth became obvious. Someone wasn't helping me expose Sarah. Someone was preparing to expose everything. 5. In front of thousands of viewers. Using Sarah's own event. And based on the schedule, the reveal was less than 15 minutes away. Across the ballroom, Sarah continued smiling for the cameras. Completely unaware. Nathan continued monitoring numbers. Completely confident. Sponsors continued celebrating. Guests continued applauding. Nobody seemed to realize a bomb was quietly ticking beneath the stage. A digital one. Built from documents, transfers, records, and secrets. The kind that don't explode with noise. The kind that explode with truth. Then my phone vibrated. One final message. The longest one I had received. When the presentation starts, do not stop it. No matter what happens, they're already looking for me. I stared at the words. 1,000 questions rushed through my mind. But before I could type a response, the account disappeared. Deleted. Gone. As if it had never existed. And somewhere inside that hotel, the person who had guided me for weeks had just vanished, leaving me alone with the truth, and a countdown that had already begun. The presentation began at 10:17 p.m. No dramatic announcement. No warning. Just a smooth transition between segments. One moment, Sarah was thanking sponsors. The next, the ballroom screens faded to black. Soft music started playing. Guests continued sipping drinks. Nobody looked concerned. Why would they? To everyone else, it was just another part of the show. Only I knew something was wrong. And somewhere inside that hotel, someone had risked everything to make sure it aired. The opening visuals were harmless. Luxury footage, success stories, highlight reels from previous circle events, smiling members, applause, testimonials, exactly what everyone expected. And Nathan barely looked up from his monitoring station. Sarah smiled at the audience. Relaxed. Confident. The danger remained invisible. For almost 90 seconds. Then everything changed. The music stopped. Abruptly. The screen froze. A single document appeared. No branding. No graphics. No editing. Just a financial spreadsheet. Large enough for every guest to see. Large enough for every live stream viewer to read. At first, the audience looked confused. Then the highlighted entries appeared. One by one. Funding records. Transfer records. Internal payment authorizations. Special allocation budgets. And directly beside them, source references. Names. Account identifiers. Transaction histories. The room fell silent. I watched Sarah's smile disappear. Not gradually. Instantly. like someone turning off a light. She looked toward the control room, then toward the screens, then back toward the control room. Nathan stood up, for the first time all evening, and suddenly, he looked worried. Very worried. The next slide appeared. Then another. Then another. The evidence wasn't emotional. It wasn't dramatic. It was something far more dangerous. Organized. Professional. Methodical. Every document connected to another document. Every transfer connected to another account. Every account connected to another approval. The picture built itself, piece by piece, until the audience no longer needed explanations, but could see it. A guest near the front row stood. Then another. Whispers spread through the ballroom. Phones appeared. People started recording. The live stream chat exploded. Thousands of comments raced across the screen faster than moderators could remove them. Questions. Confusion. Shock. Suspicion. The exact things organizations fear most. Not accusations. Questions. Because questions multiply. Then my account reference appeared. Highlighted. Not possible to miss. The same number connected to my wedding fund. Displayed in front of everyone. Connected to internal allocation records. Connected to event funding. Connected to approval chains. Connected to people. Real people. People standing inside that ballroom. Daniel looked at me. Neither of us spoke. Didn't need to. The evidence was speaking for itself. Sarah grabbed a microphone. Turn it off. Her voice echoed through the room. No response. She looked toward production staff. Turn it off now. Still nothing. Because whoever controlled the presentation wasn't responding anymore. And suddenly the most influential woman in the room looked powerless. Nathan moved next. Faster. More aggressively. He pushed through staff members and disappeared toward the control area. The audience noticed. The cameras noticed. The viewers noticed. And perception started shifting. Fast. Dangerously fast. Because calm people don't run toward control rooms. Panicked people do. Then the final section appeared. Not financial records. Video. A compilation. Private recordings. Internal meetings. Unedited conversations. Years of moments nobody expected to become public. Most were ordinary. But several weren't. One recording showed executives discussing member success stories. Another showed marketing teams intentionally exaggerating outcomes. Another showed discussions about using public faces to absorb criticism. And then, the clip everyone remembered appeared. Nathan's voice. Clear. Undeniable. Projected across every screen. After tonight, she'll carry the responsibility anyway. Silence followed. Absolute silence. Because everyone understood exactly what he meant. Sarah wasn't being protected. She was being positioned, prepared, sacrificed if necessary. The realization hit the room all at once. Like a wave. Sarah turned toward the screens. And for the first time all night, she looked genuinely hurt. Not angry. Not defensive. hurt. Because suddenly she understood something I had only recently realized. She had been benefiting from the system, but she had also been trapped inside it. Used by it. Dependent on it. And now abandoned by it. Security entered minutes later. Then lawyers. Then hotel management. Then eventually investigators, and the event effectively collapsed in real time. Guests left. Sponsors disappeared, and partnership representatives stopped answering calls. Public statements began appearing online before the ballroom was even empty. The internet moves fast. Reputation moves faster. Near midnight, I finally saw Sarah again. Not on stage. Not on camera. In a quiet hallway behind the ballroom. The luxury event around us was unraveling. Workers dismantled equipment. Staff whispered nervously. The atmosphere felt like the aftermath of a storm. Sarah looked exhausted. Years older than she had that morning. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she laughed softly. A tired laugh. The kind people make when they run out of energy. You think you won. I studied her carefully. I didn't come here to win. Then why? The answer surprised even me. Because after months of anger, months of obsession, months of planning, the truth had become simpler. I wanted the truth. She looked away. Toward the empty ballroom. Toward the shattered event. Toward the empire she'd helped build. Then she whispered something I never expected to hear. I'm sorry about the money. Not an excuse. Not a defense. Not a denial. An apology. Later. Incomplete. But real. I waited. Eventually she continued. The transfer wasn't supposed to touch your account. My heart slowed. Not because I believed her completely, but because she sounded honest for the first time. It was supposed to be temporary. The favorite word of people making bad decisions. She rubbed her forehead. The system had cash flow problems. System. Not event. Not company. System. We kept moving money around, covering gaps, fixing shortages, chasing growth. She laughed again. Bitterly. We thought we'd replace it before anyone noticed. Anyone. As if my wedding fund were just another number. Another spreadsheet. Another line item. The silence stretched between us. Heavy. Complicated. Human. Because reality rarely creates perfect villains. It creates flawed people making selfish decisions. Then convincing themselves those decisions are temporary. Necessary. Harmless. Until they aren't. Eventually Sarah looked at me. Directly at. No performance. No influencer smile. No audience. Just two women standing inside the ruins of a lie. Nathan won't survive this. I nodded. Neither will the organization. She looked toward the floor. And neither will I. That part, I wasn't so sure about. Because people survive public failures. People survive scandals. People survive consequences. The difficult part is surviving themselves afterward. 3 months later, investigations were still ongoing. Assets were frozen. Records were being reviewed. Lawyers were busy. Very busy. Some money had already been recovered. More might follow. Nobody knew for certain. What mattered was that the truth existed now. Publicly. Permanently. Impossible to hide again. Daniel and I postponed our wedding. Then eventually rescheduled it. Smaller venue. Simpler plans. Fewer guests. And somehow, it felt better. More honest. More ours. Because the future we'd almost lost no longer depended on appearances. Only reality. Sometimes people ask if exposing Sarah made me feel satisfied. The honest answer? Not exactly. Justice feels different than revenge. But less exciting. More complicated. Revenge imagines a perfect ending. Justice rarely provides one. It simply shines a light into dark places and forces everyone to look, including yourself. As for the anonymous person who helped me, I never learned their identity. Not officially. Maybe they were an employee. Maybe a member. Maybe someone carrying guilt. Maybe someone seeking their own version of justice. Whoever they were, they disappeared the night of the live stream and never contacted me again. Sometimes mysteries remain mysteries. But every so often, when I think about that night, I remember the final message they sent. The one that appeared seconds before their account vanished. A message I didn't fully understand until much later. It simply said, "The truth doesn't destroy people. It reveals them." And after everything that happened, I think they were right.